Hello, Namaste. I recognise the divine in you. I'm going to call this part 3 of innocence, but the joke is that the whole of Course in Miracles is about innocence, really, all 1200 pages. In the last section I discussed mind not being dependent on brain, and that because it's not dependent on brain, that creates the possibility of either an afterlife, if you choose to believe in heaven, or reincarnation if you choose to believe in reincarnation. Personally, I believe in reincarnation. I have spent a number of years, I've had past life work done, and so to me it seems rather odd that people don't believe in reincarnation. God recycles every leaf as it falls from the tree. It goes back down into the ground, and then it's mulched up and drawn up through the roots, and it's born again. So why would he not do that with souls? Well, according to Paramahansa Yogananda, the great Kriya Yoga teacher, he was the person that took Kriya Yoga to America. I believe he died in 1952. He did enormous amounts of work, and in his book Autobiography of a Yogi, he explains a lot of the yogic principles that are encrypted into the Bible. The Bible actually has lots of references to yoga principles, and he mentions that it was about 550, I think 54 AD, that the church took a decision, the Christian church decided to edit reincarnation from the Bible. Now before that it was a belief that most Christians shared. They actually believed in reincarnation. Well, to edit the Bible is classed as a heresy, and according to my friend Sonia, who is a priest, an Anglican priest, she said that a heresy is an unforgivable sin. So even though the Bible's been edited, and that in itself was a heresy, no one's got the inclination to commit an unforgivable sin and re-edit it back to what it was. So the error has to stay now because of some kind of rules that I don't understand. Anyway, I was brought up with Old Testament and New Testament, and I always found the Old Testament stuff very confusing. I was led to believe that God, Jehovah, was quite nasty. That in some of the Old Testament scriptures it says an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, and I started to think, but Jesus Christ said that we shouldn't take revenge. Jesus Christ said that we should forgive, that's a better way. So how come we should take an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth? Well, my teachers, they were older than me, so they said, oh, don't bother about the Old Testament, just concentrate on the New. But it always sat with me, and it didn't feel right. And then, not so long ago, I met a young lad who researches all kinds of things, and he was telling me about an encryption code called Kabbalah, or Kabbalah. I'm sure you've all heard of Madonna, the pop star, and apparently she's been studying this encryption code. If you use the encryption code the right way round and you unencrypt some of the things from the Bible, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth is not advocating revenge at all. It's quite the opposite. What it's saying is that if I blind you and damage your eyes, I must become your eyes. So it's then my job to take you by the hand and lead you round so you don't fall over things. Now that seems to make a lot of sense to me. And then if I break your teeth, yes, I've got to cut your food up. I've got to become your food. I've got to become your teeth so that your food is already prepared for swallowing. Okay? So this is actually not an advocation of revenge. It's quite the opposite. It's saying be responsible, act lovingly. You know, if you do some damage, make good. And I think that's in keeping with love your neighbour. It's in keeping with love your enemy too. And then another phrase in the Old Testament was, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. Well, on the face of it, it sounds like Jehovah likes to enjoy a bit of revenge. But then if that's so, why would he send his son to tell us not to take revenge? Why would he send his son to tell us that forgiving is the better way? Well, again, I was talking to Ben about this, and he said to me that it's actually nothing to do with God being vengeful. He's simply saying it's not our place to take revenge, that forgiving is the better way, and it's not our job to correct people. Which brings me back to the question of reincarnation. Now, I checked in the back of the Course in Miracles in the Manual for Teachers, and it says that the course has no particular preference on reincarnation. So if a student believes in it and it supports them in their spiritual journey, then let them believe it. And if they don't believe in it, don't force it on them. If they don't need it, then they don't need it. But I've always been a very kind of curious person, and I like to know how things work. And I started to think that when I do something wrong, my conscience tells me I've done something wrong. I'm more likely to get defensive if somebody else tells me that I'm wrong. But when I'm left to my own ends, in the quiet of the night, for example, my conscience speaks to me. And when it says, well, David, you didn't have to do that, did you? That wasn't very kind. Have you ever tried to shut your conscience up? You can't win. Forget it. You just can't. Because it's actually your divine connection. I think it is the breath of Jehovah in all of us. That is the soul, which is the life force. And it has its own consciousness. It has its own capacity to instruct us. So, if we talk about reincarnation, the thing I must emphasize is that a 70-year span in a body is not a life. The course is clear in the Manual for Teachers. It says we must emphasize that it's the continuity of the soul which is life, and that these 70-year spans, 70 years and 10, are actually almost just punctuation. They don't determine that. It's not fair to really call them a life. And yet I would say lifetimes, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. But that's because of the language that we use is designed for communicating stuff that we're familiar with. So, if a person reincarnates, which is to say a soul reincarnates, that soul has the opportunity to redo lessons. That soul has the ability to learn from the past, to move forwards, and with a sense of knowing. I believe the word is discernment. If you have two identical twins, they're both very, very intelligent. One of them has got discernment because they're an older soul. They'll use their intelligence to find a cure for cancer. The younger soul, which hasn't got discernment, doesn't realise that right action is most desirable, will possibly turn to crime. But the result is that if you look at what happens in the world, it's the younger souls that go around causing the trouble. So, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, is simply a way of saying that the universe is self-correcting, and we can forgive. We don't need to correct. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Namaste.